The Amazing Spider-Man number 4, September 1963. Story: Nothing Can Stop the Sandman. Heroes and villains introduced: the Sandman, Charlie and his jewel store thieves, Betty Brant, Principal Davis. While Spidey was doing his normal patrolling, he saw a police officer chasing someone in a green shirt. Deciding to assist him, Spidey chased and cornered the guy only to recognize him as the crook in the newspaper, Sandman. Spidey tried to punch him, but the punches went past his body. Sandman retaliated and hit Spidey, causing his mask to fall off. Fearing that his identity would be exposed, Spidey ran off, leaving Sandman on his way to rob the bank. While repairing his costume, Spidey heard from a news report that Flint Marko is Sandman. He was an escaped convict on the run, and while evading police chase, he hid in an atomic test area. Unknowingly, the nuclear explosion combined with the molecules of his body with the sand in which he was lying in. As the police were in pursuit of Sandman, he decided to take refuge in Midtown High School, the same school where Spider-Man studies. Demanding the principal to grant him a diploma, the principal refused and told Flint that diplomas are to be earned and not given away. Spider-Man spurned at the moment and took the fight to Sandman. As they were fighting, Spider-Man tricked Sandman to be a fine mist of sand before sucking him into the janitor's vacuum cleaner. Before leaving, Spidey took pictures of himself fighting Sandman to be given to Jonah. The Amazing Spider-Man number 5, October 1963. Story: Marked for Destruction by Dr. Doom. Heroes and villains introduced: Dr. Doom. As Jonah spread the message of his hate towards Spider-Man, Dr. Doom overheard the news bulletin and was inspired to contact Spider-Man to join forces to fight the Fantastic Four. Transmitting a message to Spidey using a spider wavelength message transmitter, Spider-Man overheard the message and headed to Dr. Doom. A flat no, as his answer to Doom's request, led to a fight between the two. Doom later revealed that Spidey was talking with one of his bots. Doom then exploded the building that they were fighting and framed Spidey for the destruction. Attempting to track down Spider-Man, Dr. Doom closed in on Spidey's real home and was able to detect Spidey's presence nearby. At that same time, Flash Thompson was heading towards Peter's home to prank him in a Spider-Man costume. Mistaking Flash as the real Spider-Man, Dr. Doom kidnapped Flash and scurried away to his helicopter. Showing the live video feed of the kidnapped Flash in a Spider-Man costume, Dr. Doom demanded that the Fantastic Four disband and surrender to him, otherwise Spider-Man will be killed. Despite hating Flash, Peter decided to go to hero mode and save Flash. After being able to track him in an abandoned factory, he informed Doom that the fake Spidey has been captured. They both clashed, and after a while, Dr. Doom's security alerts informed him that the Fantastic Four were oncoming, and realized that he could not defeat all 5 heroes at once. He retreated. The Amazing Spider-Man number 6, November 1963. Story: Face to Face with the Lizard. Heroes and villains introduced: the Lizard, Curtis Connors. The villain, the Lizard, was introduced in this issue. In this story, Peter heard news report that there was a lizard-like creature that terrorized the local population of Florida's Everglades swamp. Hearing the news report of Spider-Man being too afraid to take on the lizard, Peter convinces Jonah to send him to Florida to take pictures of the battle between Spider-Man and the lizard. Jonah agreed to go with Peter on the trip to Florida. Peter read about it in the newspaper about a reptile expert, Dr. Curtis Connors. As Peter wandered into the swamps to track the lizard after separating from Jonah, he was ambushed by the lizard. After a brief battle, Spidey spots what seems to be Dr. Connors' house and wanted to know more about the lizard. In the house, Spidey found out the truth of the lizard, who happened to be Dr. Kurt Connors himself. Kurt has lost his right arm and developed a serum that could regenerate his lost limbs, such as a reptilian ability. However, in the process, the serum controlled him and turned him into a raging man-lizard despite growing his lost right arm back. To prevent from hurting his own family, Kurt ran away and wandered alone in the swamps. Spidey decided to check Kurt's house to find out the antidote for him, but the lizard entered the house and attacked Spidey. Spidey was able to develop a cure before their fierce close combat ensued, and before the Lizard was able to command his army of reptilians to attack Spidey, Spidey managed to force feed the serum to the Lizard, bringing him back to his conscious. Dr. Connors thanked Spidey for saving him and his family and destroyed all related documents to the reptile formula. The Amazing Spider-Man number 7, December 1963. Story: The Return of the Vulture. Heroes and villains introduced: the Vulture, recurring. The story reintroduced the Vulture, who was plotting to escape from prison for revenge against Spider-Man. Reworking on his new flying device, he escaped from prison and used his new wings to avoid capture by a police helicopter. Spotted by Spider-Man, Spidey rushed into the aid of the police to battle the Vulture. Underestimating the Vulture, he was beaten by the Vulture, who changed his method of flying to combat the anti-magnetic inverter that belonged to Spider-Man. Spider-Man returned home defeated with a broken arm. Feeling confident that Spider-Man was defeated, the Vulture targeted Jonah Jameson's publishing empire as his next target of robbery. Peter, who was there at the same time, quickly changed into his costume and battled with the Vulture at the Daily Bugle. Battling at the printing press, the Vulture tried to maneuver Spidey to the huge rollers to crush him. Spidey tricked the Vulture to fly high into the sky before pinning his wings so that he was unable to fly anymore. The Vulture was then defeated, and Jonah Jameson berated at Spider-Man for ruining his newsroom before Spidey webbed his mouth to silence him. The Amazing Spider-Man number 8, January 1964. The story: The Terrible Threat of the Living Brain. Heroes and villains introduced: the Living Brain. A formidable foe of Spider-Man, the Living Brain was created by the International Computing Machines and described as the most intelligent computer and robot in existence. It is capable of solving any questions posed. In the latest series of the Superior Spider-Man arc, it was reprogrammed and served as a lab assistant at Parker Industries. The Living Brain was introduced by Mr. Petty, the designer of it at Midtown High School. Peter was tasked with demonstrating the idea that it could answer any questions posed. All his classmates wanted to know the true identity of Spider-Man, including Flash Thompson, who demanded a change to decode it. Deciding to duel in a boxing match for a chance to decode the Living Brain, Peter easily knocks him out due to his powers. Two thieves decide to steal the Living Brain while Peter was dueling, but one of them accidentally knocked into control panels. The Living Brain went wild and started attacking everyone. Realizing the danger, Spider-Man suited up and fought off the Living Brain. Realizing that the Living Brain had a plan for every attack, Spidey found the off switch and deactivated it. Flash Thompson was given the credit of defeating the Living Brain, as he was nearby the incident, much to his dismay. Story: The Spider-Man Tackles the Torch. Heroes and villains introduced: Fantastic Four, recurring. Spider-Man decides to swing in on home to Johnny Storm's girlfriend, one Doris Evans, to show her what she's missing in the dating world by not dating him. When he gets there, there's a full-bore party going on. Johnny's inside showing off his mastery over flame, and Spidey tries to one-up him by creating a flying bat out of webs that sure creates a change in the party. Johnny tries to kill the bat, but winds up with the webbing all over him. This eventually leads to a one-on-one battle between the two teenage egomaniacs, in which they parry, thrust, attack, and counterattack at a nearby beach. By the time Spidey lands on the beach, a victim of the Torch's flame net, the rest of the Fantastic Four have arrived. Spider-Man is offended that they are sitting there just laughing at him. The Amazing Spider-Man number 9, February 1964. Story: The Man Called Electro. Heroes and villains introduced: Electro. The introduction of one of the most formidable foes of the Sinister Six, Electro. Electro was an egotistical line repairman, was begged by his boss to save a coworker from electrocution. He did so, but under the condition that he would be paid a huge bonus for doing so. Karma struck him, and after saving the coworker, he was zapped by a massive lightning bolt, ultimately granting him the electrical powers. Using his new powers for crime, Electro became Spider-Man's nemesis. The story revolves on the struggles of Peter in getting funds for the operations of Aunt May alongside his battle with Electro. Spidey and Electro battled at the prison as Electro was trying to gather prisoners, and Spidey eventually defeated Electro by aiming a water hose and spraying Electro to short circuit. The Amazing Spider-Man number 10, March 1964. His story, The Enforcers. Heroes and villains introduced: The Enforcers, The Big Man, The Ox. The first appearance of Bugle journalist turned mobster Frederick Foswell, aka The Big Man, and the Enforcers Fancy Dan, The Ox, and Montana. The Big Man had a meeting with the rival gang leaders to take control over New York alongside the help of the Enforcers. Peter decides to make a decisive run at the Enforcers once and for all, but since he has no idea where their new hideout is, he decides on a new course of action. He will allow himself to get captured by the Enforcers. The next day, Peter starts bragging to his classmates about knowing the identity of the Big Man, and inevitably word reaches the Big Man that Parker knows his ID. And as a matter of fact, the Big Man knows of Parker as well, and tells his boys to go pick the kid up. The Big Man and Spider-Man clashed at the Daily Bugle as Spidey assumes the Big Man was Jonah Jameson. After much fights, the police arrest Foswell as they uncovered his identity for being the Big Man in his car. The Amazing Spider-Man number 11 through number 19, March through December 1964. In this series, several key villains were introduced, such as a return of Dr. Octopus from prison, the introduction of the rest of the Sinister Six team, Mysterio, Green Goblin, and Kraven the Hunter. Spider-Man was also unmasked by Dr. Octopus and revealed to be Peter Parker, but was not believed by everyone. Betty's past history was also revealed, whereby her brother, Bennett Brandt, who was shot by a stray bullet during the fight between Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man, had gambling debts and was working for crime boss Blackie Gaxton. In order to clear the debts, Bennett was forced to free Dr. Octopus from prison. Betty Brandt, originally a secretary at the Daily Bugle, blamed Spider-Man for the death of her brother during the tussle between Spider-Man and Dr. Octopus after his release from prison. Mysterio, master of special effects and illusions, framed Spider-Man for a robbery in his first appearance. Mysterio was able to block Spidey with gas and dissolve his webbing with chemical abrasive. Much later, however, Spidey managed to capture their fight on tape, resulting in Mysterio being jailed. The Green Goblin convinced a movie producer to make a movie with Spidey fighting the Enforcers and himself. The Green Goblin and Spidey eventually clashed, and while they were fighting in a cave, they encountered the Hulk. Spider-Man knew the true strength of Kraven the Hunter when Spidey tried to stop a robbery that was organized by Kraven himself. Tracking down Kraven to a forest using a spider tracker that he'd attached earlier, the fight came to an end when Spider-Man found out that it was the Chameleon in disguise. He found the original Kraven overpowered with his strength, eventually delivering both the Chameleon and Kraven to the police. Spider-Man was tricked by the Ringmaster under hypnosis to fight against Daredevil in a circus. The Ringmaster hypnotized everyone at the circus in order to rob them of their money, but being immune to mind control, Daredevil removed the hypnosis from Spider-Man, and eventually they defeated the Ringmaster and his henchmen. The Green Goblin returned and terrorized Spider-Man's fan club, meeting which was set up by Flash Thompson. Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch, was also there, realizing that the Green Goblin was not part of the show as misunderstood by the people at the fan club meeting. Eventually, the Goblin flew after he had to face the Human Torch alone. Spider-Man, feeling dejected as his Aunt May was sick and needed medicine, fled from the previous fight with the Green Goblin. Because of this, he became a laughingstock across town at other supervillains. Feeling dejected, he stopped becoming Spidey and tried to earn money for Aunt May's medication. He tried a trading card company as well as a pair of scientists to sell his webbing, but both failed. Johnny Storm, realizing that Spidey was different than usual, offered to meet with Spidey at the Statue of Liberty, but he did not turn up. Spidey even fled when he encountered Sandman on his way home. As he was about to give up being Spider-Man, the doctor treating Aunt May told him that he does not require any more medication and she was in good condition. After reading another article about Spidey being a pussy, Peter decided that it was time to go into hero mode again. Spidey learned that Sandman had captured Human Torch in a glass jar to lure Spidey into fighting him. Sandman teamed up with the Enforcers to defeat Spider-Man, but Spidey eventually managed to outsmart them and defeat them. The Enforcers were arrested, but Sandman managed to flee after the scene.